Welcome, gamers, to this week's episode of Last Call Gaming. Today is January 19th, 2024, our first episode back for this year. My name is Craig Perales, and joining me, as always, is Mandrew Montemayor. Guys, we did want to say that it did take a little bit longer. We were going to start last week. The original plan was to always have that first week of January off. We gave you guys a couple episodes. Unfortunately, I did have someone pass away that did kind of take up some of the time, but now it is a little later in the month than we wanted to get started, but I don't think we really missed too much for us to get back on the ball and start going.
No, I think we're starting right at the right time.
Like the perfect time. Oh, before we dive into too much of it though, how was your Christmas, man? How was your New Year's? I mean, as much as we see each other, I feel like we didn't see each other too much. I know you've got a lot of family stuff going on, and I just feel like there's a lot happening in these last 3 weeks. These 3 weeks really kind of just flew by. So, what did you do? And did you get any cool presents?
I always forget when it comes to presents if I got... I always get stuff cool, but I just get... I think it's been so long... Not so long, but I've been traveling a lot is my thing. And so all my times are just like, did I get this then? Did I get this there? Because my birthday is just before Christmas too. So I'm like, well, what did I get then that I didn't get now? And whatever. I honestly usually buy everything that I need, so people just give me cash and I just go and get tattooed, which I did go and start doing the other side of my stomach.
Oof.
And
I have toes soon.
I have another session on that, and then I'm gonna start the other side, and then I think I'll probably start my back. I've not been wanting to do that.
Start getting those Voz tattoos,
bro. I'm gonna have to. But that's been my big thing. Is my dad lives like 4 hours from here, so I've been traveling back and forth, not just for Christmas. My other cousin turned 30 the other day, so we did like a dirty 30 for him. He had like a themed costume or like a theme, and it was just like your favorite movie character or actor or someone like that.
So I like stuff like that's cool.
So I went as Dennis from
The Menace.
No, Dennis from Jurassic Park, Nedry, the IT guy. So I had like the yellow jacket, I had like a little gray shirt, and I put the black stuff all over my face from when the Dilophosaurus spits in his face. I really wish I tried to get Christina to go as the Dilophosaurus, but she wasn't having it. And then I was like, you can be Dennis and I'll go as the Dilophosaurus. I thought it'd be the coolest couple's costume, but she wasn't having it.
Oh, I would have jumped on you with that one. Yeah, I got a bunch of cool stuff between... seeing a couple things. One of the cool, I left this on the table, was I've been wanting to, and I posted on our Instagram, is I've been wanting to get back into reading some comics, and I was like, we protect all the ones we have, or we CGC them. I'm like, I want to go back and read something that I love. Bane's one of my favorite characters, so I ended up getting Batman Nightfall. It's like 630 something pages. The artwork's gorgeous. I'm currently at 247. I try to read like one or two books a night, so it's been really kind of fun. Getting that in terms of presents. That was kind of one of the coolest ones I thought I got. So guys, leave down in the comments below how your holiday was, how your New Year was, any cool things that you may have gotten. So guys, before we dive further into the show, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. If you're interested in following us on any of our social media, our Linktree link is in the description. And if you guys are listening to the audio-only version of the podcast, you can check us out on your podcast platform of choice. So to kind of keep rolling into what we've just been talking about, before we get into the show, Andrew and I like to do, what are you up to? We take a second and talk about some of the finer things that we've been specifically doing in terms of watching and or playing games. So Andrew, I know you've been traveling, but if you get a chance to watch anything, play anything, you've been a busy little bee.
Yeah, I kind of cruised through a few things. I did actually go and see that new Wonka movie. Now, I didn't even watch a trailer or anything about this movie, so I didn't know like what point in his life or anything like that. I didn't know anyone who was in the movie or anything.
You went in blind to this thing completely?
I'd never seen a trailer or nothing. The only thing I seen was like the logo for it or whatever.
So it was like a family gathering or something?
Yeah, my dad wanted to go see it. Likes the original one, and me and my dad, even when we were kids, used to go see movies together like all the time. And his kids now, for whatever reason, they're not really like into movies.
That's weird.
And my dad, like, even though he's just like a big sports guy, loves going and seeing like Star Wars and Harry Potter and just having that movie theater experience. He's really into that. So we, when I went out there, we went together and we went to go see Wonka. I didn't even know it was a musical, and I thought
songs of it.
I thought it was super dope. Like, I actually really, really liked it. I like the idea too of they're like, it's not a prequel to Gene Wilder's. You could take it as a companion piece if you want to. And I like the idea of, because that was my big thing seeing it. I'm like, do I really want to see like another Wonka at the end of his journey, ready to find like another like Charlie Bucket or whatever? Because obviously I love Gene Wilder's. I don't really care for Johnny Depp's. I really actually enjoyed this movie a lot. I thought it was really good. I wasn't bored throughout the whole time. I would actually say I loved it. I do want to see it again. I think it's really good, especially if you're into musicals. It had a lot of really cool songs, and just his starting journey for being like a chocolatier, I thought it was like super sick.
Awesome. And then playing, I know you've been up to a couple things.
Yeah, I bought Control because it was on. I bought a couple games because they were on the Christmas sale, and I don't know why. I just had like a hankering to play maybe like a third person shooter. So I bought Control. I went through and played it. I like the gameplay of it and the idea and all the cool powers that you can do. I just don't know that I cared too much for the story, especially because I got a little lost in it. Because later on too, I think it was like the final there was like 15% of the game for some reason that when they were talking, the audio just was not working, and the cutscenes would like skip around between people, so I don't know who's saying what or what is going on. That I had to like go through after and like Wikipedia, and I'm like, okay, like I guess that's what was happening there.
Play with subtitles on or anything like that?
Well, even when I had subtitles on, it would be on the wrong person. So I don't know who's saying what because it doesn't say who's talking in the subtitles. It just has subtitles. So I kind of had an idea, but then it would like skip through them like really fast. It was weird to be like that broken for a game that is that old.
Yeah.
And I went through. I think I'm only missing like one achievement where you have to. Two. I think there's one for 100%ing it, and then another one for going through and you're supposed to upgrade all your powers to the max. And I'm like, okay, like how many? I only need like 13 more nodes for it. But I was not wanting to sit there and play that game for that much longer, running around doing random stuff. But it was a cool game. I enjoyed it for what it was. I think I liked Nier a bit more. That's my next game that I played was Nier Automata. I went through and I didn't really like it until the end of the first storyline that you play. So the way it works is you do the storyline for one, and then you do it a second time, which I hated because you do 85% of the same stuff, but then you get a little bit more story exposition, and then the third storyline is completely different. And once you start finding out like the lore and what was going on, because you're doing a lot of things that take place at like the same time as other stuff, and it's like post the end of your one journey, I really liked it like a lot more. Like the story was really, really good. Once it took off, I just hated the journey to get there. I wish they would have just done like either 3 separate stories or maybe broken one up into, okay, you're playing as this character for 85%. Now to get the other 15%, this is how we're going to end. You're playing another character. And then 2, you play as like whatever and go through. I did 100% it, but that wasn't through beating it. This is one of those like random games where there's like a mechanism you can do. So you go through and there's like this salesman after you have beaten it for the 3rd time, and you can buy all the achievements from them. And so instead of doing all the grindy stuff, I was like, F that. I sold everything I had, and I was like, I just bought everything. I'm like, all right, easy hundo.
I love all of that.
But I still really, really enjoyed the game. I think there's an anime of it, like that's on Netflix or something. When I went to go look it up afterwards, I'm like, oh, you know what? I must have missed this. I definitely want to go through and check it out.
Nice. As far as what I was watching, I watched a bunch of stuff, but the one I just kind of wanted to point out was, because I think I mentioned it before, that I was going to watch Blue Beetle. I ended up watching it because I was like, let's see how bad it is, if it is that bad. It came out on August 19th. It's now streaming on HBO Max, which I'll forever call it HBO Max. I'll never call that streaming service just Max, and that was one of the stupidest things ever. It had a budget of $104 million. On the box office, it made $130.7, so after marketing, this thing probably ended up actually losing money. But one of the cool things that I did like is that originally this movie was going to just be a streaming movie. And then Zaslav and those guys, when they came in, they're like, no, let's give it a theatrical release. So even though it lost money, it still made $130 million that it never would have had if it was never going to theaters. But with that being said,
is this part of the old or the new DCU?
It's part of the old DCU that was before James Gunn, but he's established that this character playing Jaime Reyes will be the same character in his new version.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Yeah. So, for this movie, it's an alien scarab chooses Jaime Reyes to be at Symbiotic Host, bestowing the recent college graduate with a suit of armor that's capable of extraordinary powers, forever changing his destiny as he becomes a superhero known as Blue Beetle. So, the cast is decent. I like the kid. I can't pronounce his name. Zolo Mari Duena, he's the kid from Cobra Kai. There's a couple other decent people in it, but I will say this: the movie has heart. It really captures like that Mexican feel of familia and all these guys having each other's backs and everything like that. But other than that, the world that they're set in, even though it is within the DC world, it just feels fake. Like all of it when I'm watching it, I'm like, this doesn't seem real at all. Like when Susan Sarandon's character is playing Victoria Cord. Like she's supposed to be as rich as like this, like a Lex Luthor type of person, but I'm like, none of what you're doing makes any sense to me. And the biggest thing is, it's just, to me, it wasn't funny. Like, and when you watch these trailers and you watch, especially like George Lopez, who is clearly supposed to be the funny man of the cast, he's got jokes. I won't say that it's completely dead of comedy, but to me, it was just like, man, I know what you're trying to do, and it's just really, really not funny. I'd argue that the second half of the movie is better than the first. So if you can get past the first, I will say it does get better. The action scenes are pretty decent. Him playing Jaime Reyes, I do actually like. So I am curious of how James Gunn is going to use them and moving forward in the new DCU. But overall, I would say it's probably skippable. And if you do want to watch it, I'm glad I was able to watch it in bed with a beer instead of wasting, $15, $30 at a movie theater. So
I didn't watch this or the new Aquaman.
I haven't seen the new Aquaman either yet, but I think it's supposed to be better, even though that movie completely flopped as well. The last one was like $1 billion. I think this one barely made like 300 million or something gnarly like that. As far as what I was playing, it's weird that we both were playing Remedy games. I just beat Alan Wake Remastered, which was the original Alan Wake is a 2010 action-adventure game developed by Remedy Entertainment and published by Microsoft Game Studios. It's currently on every platform. The remastered version came out on October 2021, which is weird because I didn't think it was that old. But now that I think about it, I think we did I remember covering it though, but it doesn't feel like it was that old. But you know what everyone's really buzzing about is Alan Wake 2. And one of the things I remember talking about before we did our top 5 games of the year is I couldn't play in good faith Alan Wake 2 without playing Alan Wake 1, especially because I really enjoy that world. I've beaten Control, I've beaten Quantum Break, so it's like if I'm gonna play it, I want to be involved in it. And I'll say this: you don't have to play Alan Wake 1, but I would say, and it's not that long of a game; it's 6 chapters, but you're really gonna be missing out on something if you don't. And one of the cool things about this game is that it really kind of does the survival horror in terms of like your ammo rations, and then having to use like light sources. So you're using like flashlights on people, you're using flares on enemies so that they don't follow you and things like that. So it's a really cool concept of this writer who he's a world famous writer. He ends up getting writer's block for like 2 years, and he's going to this place to try to spark his, get his creative juices going. And what happens is things that he's written are starting to like come to life and try to attack him and kill him, and people want their things rewritten. It gets a lot more deeper into that, but I won't spoil any of that for you. It's not, I wouldn't compare it to anything that's like jump scary, right? It does have some very kind of like guys are chasing you and you got to try to get away. But so it wasn't anything that was like mind blowing. And I will say the final boss, if you want to call it a boss, what I felt was kind of weak. But I know from what I'm hearing, everything in Alan Wake 2 is just better by every means. So it's going to be nice to kind of do a compare and contrast that. And I'll say the coolest scene of it was there's this part where you're getting chased by all these dudes and you're on this like a rock concert, like a stage. And dude, it starts blasting these music from these 2 Viking singers. And it's a cool cheese part because there's an achievement for getting X amount of kills with like the shotgun, the rifle, the handgun. So this stage has every gun on it. So you can literally shoot everybody, get the achievement, restart it, and then get all of them. So I definitely did that. So if you plan on playing it, definitely don't worry about getting light kills and things like that with all the guns, because there's a perfect stage to do it all. So with that all being said, that is what I've been playing. That's what I've been watching. So guys, leave in the comments down below what you have been up to. So with that down and out of the way, guys, let's move into our main story, and that is the 2024 Xbox Developer Direct, which launched on January 18th, which is about 45 minutes, just happened. This is the first big reveal of the year for Microsoft. If you guys remember last year when they did it, that was the same thing when like Hi-Fi Rush dropped. So this is Microsoft's kind of way Xbox's main way of showing that what our big games are going to be. And a lot of hype was around this because people were kind of focusing on going, okay, what's Xbox big main first party games going to be this year? Is this going to be something that can rival Nintendo's and PlayStation's, where, you look at last year, they had no first party games being nominated for real big game of the year. So the 4 main studios that they had that were first party lined up with a special guest that we'll mention in a minute was Obsidian showing off Avowed, Oxide showing off Aura, Ninja Theory showing off Hellblade 2, and Machine Games showing off Indiana Jones. So before we dive into the games and what we thought about what we saw, I just wanted to ask you, because we did get release dates, 1 solid date for 1 game, and then 3 spots that are going to be coming out. Do you think these games are going to stick the landing this year? And do you think any of these games, even if you compare them last year to Nintendo's first party and Sony's first party, are any of these games you think on paper look as good as those? Before we dive into them, what's your first thoughts of it?
I think that there's no reason any of these, except for maybe like Avowed, should miss their date. All they should come out this year. There's no reason they shouldn't, especially Hellblade. Right. There's no reason that game should not come out this year. Like 5 years old. We've been talking about it. 4 years old. I think if you're looking at 2 different things, I think as far as maybe like, because I've never seen an Indiana Jones movie, or the only one I've seen is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, you've seen the bad ones.
So I need to go back and actually watch them. I'm excited for this. So I think that that's something that could maybe rival like what Uncharted is. Yeah. But if you're talking maybe like not a Last of Us experience, but something like, as far as like technically this is impressive and maybe the story is that good, I think that's where it's split. You'll have one that's maybe like the experience, like this is fun, like we're having a great time, this is that Uncharted feeling, and then you have something else like this is a technical marvel and maybe a masterpiece in storytelling if it's that good with Hellblade. So I think it's a cool idea to, well, not that they intended for that, but you have kind of both of those things covered.
Excellent, yeah, because I was kind of looking at this going, yeah, I think they all should hit. I'm with you that I think maybe one, it shouldn't though at this point. Like if Microsoft's going to come out and say this, they have to nail this down. As far as the titles, I think Indiana Jones is what they were really trying to show off, and we'll dive into it. I think Avowed, though, has a really nice chance if you're looking at something that's on par with like a Skyrim. So with that being said, we'll go down in order of which studios went first, and Obsidian was the first one that they decided to show off, which was Avowed, and the release date that they have was coming in fall of 2024. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Obsidian, some of their games that you may be familiar with are Neverwinter Nights 2, Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, which Avowed will be taking place in said universe, Outer Worlds, and Grounded, which, I mean, I just like everything that I'm seeing off of that. I'm just going to read this to you real quick, guys, and then we'll kind of dive into it. So, Avowed is the upcoming RPG from Obsidian Entertainment that takes place in the same universe as the Pillars of Eternity franchise. I guess it says it. At today's developer direct, Obsidian shared more information about the combat, showing off battles with weapons like a one-handed wand, dual-wield pistols, swords, and the Tanglefoot ability that stops enemies in their tracks. As you'd expect in an RPG from the developers of Fallout New Vegas and the Outer Worlds, Avowed will include dialogue trees with difficult choices for players to make. Obsidian said Avowed is coming in fall 2024. And one of the things you got to remember when we're watching these things, you got to remember, it's a developer direct. This isn't like an E3 or a Game Awards where they're showing off trailers. It was a lot of showing behind the scenes of how they've been getting things done and what they've been up to and everything they've been putting into it. So it's a lot of these developers talking about a bunch of different things. And Avowed, I think, looked really good. So I read that. What were your first thoughts looking at kind of a bigger picture for what Avowed's going to be?
At first, maybe I kind of didn't like it because I was picturing something maybe more like Skyrim or like Oblivion or something. And I think maybe it was just a color palette, 'cause how bright it was and bright, like vibrant. That I'm like, this almost reminded me of like maybe like Sea of Thieves or like Grounded or something like that. Like I just kind of wasn't crazy about the art style. But the more it went on, and because at first you didn't see like dead bodies or anything, they're just fighting monsters. But then you start to see like dead people, dead humans, dead other like human like species or whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. At first it was almost giving me like a vibe of, I don't want to say like Kitty Skyrim or something like that.
Like a fable-looking Skyrim or something.
Yeah, but maybe not something as dark. But I think what really sealed it for me is when you get to the store, they're talking about the dialogue options. They're talking to this guy, and you can give him like, I I don't know.
Badges,
It's like
they were the badges or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like badges or dog tags or something of his fallen comrades to return home and be like, tell the story of what happened. Like, don't forget these guys. Or you can accuse him of being a coward, in which turn it makes you end up fighting him. I'm like, okay, like there's kind of more adult of what I'm looking for. But the combat looked really good. I'm not big into magic, but I did like when he pulled out the 2 wands and he's like
they're
doing the
to like a
spells.
pistol blasting and things like that. Yeah,
And I think I'm just gonna be more like straight brute force. I don't know what it is in these games. That's always my favorite thing to do over magic.
yeah. One of the things they were showing off too is just how easy you can mix and match it. And again, we've seen things like that in Skyrim, but they were really showing off how you could use a wand and turn someone into ice, and then use your axe or sword or whatever you had to really go up and break them. And one of the things they wanted to point out is that they were going, combat will be one of the fastest things we have going. They had a couple of preset loadouts, and they were saying in real time as you're fighting, it moves really, really quick and really, really fast. And they're saying that this game will not really be a hack and slash. This will really be kind of you being a tactician on how you're going to battle, how you're going to fight. But I mean, when you got games like that where you can do fast, I've always like the ability to shoot the magic and then still use it. And when they were showing off the wand abilities with like having like a magical sword, I was like, ooh, that's probably what I'm gonna play. So
I like seeing him say, how quick it was. Like, I'm gonna wand that guy to slow him down. Then I'm gonna take the pistol to stun that guy. I'm gonna take the sword and try to kill this dude while the other two, and then now I'm gonna turn my attention back towards them. I'm like, that is like, I really like the idea of like that kind of combat, like being that fast-paced.
Yeah, and one of the things too, because they point out that they had that spell they showed off. It's not just shooting out electricity or fireballs. That he actually shot out, I think it was Tanglefoot, and it was like a plant-based thing, because it's really kind of D&D RPG kind of style, and like it slowed him down, it caught him, and then he's able to fight other people and then go track that guy down. So it's going to be really cool to see what other spells they're going to have in this. It's going to be like bigger AoE or slowed down or enhanced spells or things like that.
I was on top of that too. The other cool one was when they like froze the dude and then you bring out your big weapon and just completely smash him to pieces. I'm like, that's really cool than just typical. Normally when you ice something, they kind of just slow down and they're moving slow and then they heat back up and the fight's back on.
Yeah, I think out of all the games that we talk about, I think Avowed is the one that everyone's been waiting to see how it's going to be. Obviously, Indiana Jones is going to be a game that people are waiting to see what it's about, but Avowed I know has been on a lot of people's calendars, a lot of people's minds. So the fact that it's coming out fall 2024 to me looked pretty good, and I mean from here on out we'll only see more. So anything else on Obsidian and Avowed?
Nah.
So the next studio that went was Ninja Theory, and they showed off Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, which was the only one I believe that had a hard date of May 21st.
Finally got a date.
Finally, that one better not move. And their games that they're popular for are DMC's Devil May Cry, Heavenly Sword, Disney Infinity, and which I think was 3.0, and obviously Hellblade 1. So Hellblade 2 was the first video game properly announced for the Xbox Series X, and now over 4 years since its reveal, we finally have a release date. May 21st, 2024. We also got a new trailer for the long-awaited sequel, showcasing even more of the gorgeous visuals Ninja Theory has created. The developers explain how they've leveled up since developing the original, with more complex motion capture, all-new brutal combat, audio design, and more. And again, like I said earlier, this one really showed off of what they were doing kind of behind the scenes. I really liked that they were showing off the all-new motion capture. I forgot the girl's name. I forgot to write it down. I don't know if you did.
No, because it's hard to pronounce.
Yeah. And they were just showing how they did so much with it, and then all the music they were putting into it. That looked really cool. As far as more of what the game was about, well, you just recently, because I beat Hellblade 1 when it came out. You just recently beat it. What on number 2? Kind of, I mean, anything blow your mind? Anything look really cool? Or I mean,
one, there's just a huge difference in graphics.
Yeah.
I mean, the game is gorgeous. I think the combat looked a bit better because I didn't really care too much for the first one. Like, I felt like I was kind of just getting lost. I'm like, all right, dude, like, let's just get this done. Where this just looks like it's a bit more fierce, especially too, like when you see her take a hit, or like there's this thing that like bites her, she throws it off and then like I think hits it, but then she's like checking her neck to like check for blood. It just seems like a lot more. I don't want to use the term like realistic, but like when she gets hit, it's almost like reactive, or like I said, like actually checking. That's something you would do, like if you got bit, like how how bad is it? Well, I'm doing the combat just seemed like heavy and like a lot better, I want to say, because before I just felt like I'm slashing these guys, and it's just like, okay, it's like it's just a slash, and the dude's just going like that. Whereas when she's hitting this dude, it looked like the sword's like, going in, and it's just like hunks of damage. Yeah. And so I liked that. The combat seemed a lot better than the first one, I believe.
And one of the things they were pointing out too, I think they were saying that like she's making a lot more enemies in this game as well as allies. There was something along with the line with like, I don't know if she was fighting these giants or something like that. So it seemed like the game will be on a much larger scale of the first one, of kind of going through this narrative and dealing with this psychosis that she has to deal with. Because one of the things they are pointing out is that the brutal combat will be a big part of it. One of the quotes they said was that she's not like a regular superhero. She's a survivor, and they constantly, like Andrew was saying, they constantly want you to feel like you're surviving something. And they did say they're going to dive more into the psychosis of it. That they do have, I think they brought back on, his name was Professor Paul Fletcher, who was this professor from Cambridge University, to come on and kind of help guide that, with people that can deal with that kind of stuff. And one of the other things they pointed out, and I forgot to write it down, was they were talking about the music, and I forget what the technology was, a certain type of tech that they were putting into like headsets, and they're saying this game will really kind of stand out if you put it on a headset, because then you're really going to be hearing. In the last one, I think they could only do some voices, or in this one, you're going to be kind of fully immersed in that. So is that something that you would play as a headset game? I don't know how many campaigns you play as a headset.
I usually try not. If I don't have to wear my headset, usually I don't want to. It's fine during the winter, but during the summer, because it gets so hot here, especially when it's humid and stuff like that, especially the cups, your ears just start to get sweaty, so I take them off. But I think this one is, especially if it that's one of the things I was looking at. I was like, okay, like this might be the one that I do play with the headset if it is going to really give me some sort of like benefit.
And then how'd you feel about the digital only? I think you sent it to me. It was a $50 digital only release. And then at the same time, it's going to be similar to the old one, which was 8 hours of a campaign.
Yeah, like 7 to 8 hours. I mean, we're playing it on Game Pass, so I really can't complain. And I really have to like play it first, because I'm not one of those people that's like, well, for $50, the game's going to be this long, and I should have this much replayability and blah 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 blah. Like, if you get an experience, you get an experience. If it really is that good an experience, then I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm just nervous about games moving towards this digital only sell, because that's what happened with, I believe, Alan Wake 2, right? Wasn't Alan Wake 2 with digital only sell, and it really hurt its numbers. Now again, this is going to be on Game Pass, so we'll see if that is really going to affect it. But the more things we're losing in digital only, that's a conversation for another time. But was there anything else with Ninja Theory's Senua Saga?
No, I'm just glad we finally got a date for it.
Finally got a date. And then we had a sneak attack by Square Enix, who joined the development halfway through with Visions of Mana, which is their release date for the game is summer of 2024. I'm not going to read off any games. We should all know who Square Enix is. Unfortunately, this game is not going straight to the Game Pass, but they did have this to say. And again, this article is on IGN. If you guys do want to check it out, the link will be in the description. It says, surprise guest Square Enix appeared at the Developer Direct with an update of Visions of Mana. We got to look at the upcoming RPG's real-time action combat, monster design, score, and rideable mounts in the overworld. This marks the Mana series' first release on Xbox, which is really impressive, and it's also coming to PC and PlayStation when it launches this summer. So yeah, if people don't really know, they've got a ton of games, but it originally started off as a spin-off Final Fantasy Adventures, which was back in like 1991. In Europe, it became Mystic Quest. So this game, if it looked and felt anything like old school Final Fantasy, it's because, they're pretty much share the same DNA. I've never really played any of the Mana games, maybe back when I was a lot younger. I think Geno was into a couple of them. Did you ever dive into this series, and did it catch your eye?
No, I never got a chance to play it. I know that they did. Didn't they just remaster like Secrets of Mana, but it only came to like Switch and PlayStation? Yeah. It was like a year or two ago now. There's
a ton of them, and I've always wanted to jump in. I think they said this is either going to be, they're on 17, or this will be the 17th installment in the series. So it's definitely a lot to get into. The action looked great. The guy that was in there, what they were really kind of showing off from the dev point of view was, and I wish I would have written his name down as well. He's the guy that's pretty much created all the monsters from like day one.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So they were kind of showing back this kind of flashback of all the ones he did back in the day, and how he's been creating new monsters with all the new tools and kind of reincorporating them. That looked really cool. They showed off a mount that you're able to use, which called Pikul. And it was like a mix of like this dog, armadillo, and like features of Anubis. It looked really cool. One of the highlights of the combat that caught my eye was that I guess this might be the first time that they're doing mid-air combat. So a lot of the fights that you were seeing was him fighting, slashing up, and then being able to shoot magic as well as bringing down combos. So, what it look like to you? Did the combat look good? Is it something you're interested in?
Yeah, I'm for sure going to get a day one. I love game. I love the art style of it. It actually almost kind of reminds me of like Dragon Quest a little bit. I was thinking the
same thing, yeah.
And so, either way, I think it looks really good. It's going to be a day one for me.
It looks like a really fun Switch game too.
Yeah, honestly, I wonder if this, maybe depending on how this does, or maybe a deal will lapse, we'll end up getting that Secret of Mana. But, because the original one, it's like an RPG, right? Whereas this is more almost like the Final Fantasy VII or 16, where it's more action-based versus your turn-based, your traditional turn-based, which is fine for me. I mean, I don't mind that, so...
Yeah, unfortunately, Switch ain't gonna get it anytime soon. But yeah, so when it comes out to PlayStation and PC, Xbox will get it. So really cool that it's gonna be the first time Xbox players, because again, Xbox is slowly starting to get games like the Yakuza franchise and all these games that it used to never have access to coming over. So that was a cool one and a win for them, I believe. I know a lot of people were pretty hype on that. Anything else on Square Enix?
I was saying, I do want to say that when I watched it, as soon as I seen Square Enix, I was like, Final Fantasy 16 or 7 Part 1, just give it to me.
No, here's an old spin-off from 1991 that you can play. Here you go, bye.
I'm so excited for it. I still want to play it, but I was hoping for something else.
Yeah, and so this one, guys, I don't know how much more we can say about number 4, which was from Oxide. I kind of had to think twice. I'm like, what studio is this? And this is a PC-only studio that they have, at least as far as I can tell, which was the game they had was Aura, History Untold, which was launching in fall 2024. The studio only has 2 games developed, which was the first one is Ashes of the Singularity, and then this game that's coming out. Didn't have too much to say. It said, Aura History Untold is an upcoming strategy game from Oxide Games, a team made up of many ex-developers of Firaxis' Civilization series. The studio gave us a ton of new information about the game, including the fact that you no longer have to wait for your opponents to take their turn to keep playing. Aura History Untold is coming to PC and PC Game Pass this fall. Again, I don't know how much we can say about it. I know since it is a PC exclusive game, Andrew, we talked off camera, maybe it will come to console, but it's just a game I know we're not going to play, and I don't think anyone in our immediate circle is going to play it. But for those types of games, it did look pretty cool and very, very expansive.
Yeah, it looked like there was really a lot, and they kind of had everything in there you could really want from something like that. But again, I've never really been a big fan of Age of Empires, Civilization or something like that. So I mean, it's not for me, but I thought it did look good. And again, at least they put something in here that, while it not being for everybody, there's a huge chunk of audiences out there, so I can't knock it and be like, oh, well, that was boring. Yeah,
no, it was cool that they did. I mean, you gotta remember that these guys are taking care of the PC side of the audience. I mean, I know, certain games are going to be exclusive to the platform, but the fact that Microsoft does have, hey, here's a studio and here's a game just for you, just so we're not skipping it completely. They were saying that now you can have thousands of little sim characters working at once, so they do have these animals that will kind of come in real time. They've updated their crafting system, and what they're introducing is what's called the prestige system, which is to win battles, which I'm not even sure what that means. They were pointing out saying that instead of just being combat, you can set up goals for yourself that are based on art, military, science, etc. So depending on which leader you want to pick, those will be the goals you kind of got to go after. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool, but it doesn't do anything for me.
I at least want to say, too, that when we were watching it, at no point was I all right, well, even though this is boring as hell, I was like, no, this looks really cool. It just sucks I'm not into this kind of thing.
Yeah, so that was number 4, guys. And finally, going into number 5, obviously the main one that they wanted to show off was from Machine Game, which is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is coming out at the end of 2024. I gotta say the name I don't like.
I was gonna say I'm not crazy about the name, and I wish they would have used. I forget what it is that he says. It's something to circulate or whatever, but it's the language.
The Latin version of it.
Why wouldn't you have just given it that name? That would have been a lot cooler.
Yeah, that would have been way cool, because you can miss the old names of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Last Crusade, and then it's the Great Circle, which it makes sense when you watch the trailer. But for those of you guys aren't familiar with Machine Games, they pretty much are the sole makers of the new versions of Wolfenstein and the Quake series. So this is what they had to say. We got our first look at Machine Games' Indiana Jones game, which is officially titled Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. It takes place mostly from a first-person perspective with an indie that certainly looks and sounds like Harrison Ford's original portrayal of the character. We got a look at puzzle solving to open what looks like an ancient temple, combat with Indy's iconic whip, and third-person rope-swinging action. Machine Games revealed that the game will shift to a third-person perspective for environmental traversal and cutscenes. The game is coming sometime this year. Now, see, that's the biggest one that I was worried about of maybe not hitting its date, is that it's coming sometime this year. It didn't say fall, it didn't say summer, it didn't even say winter. It just is saying sometime. I think from what we've seen, it looks. I mean,
It looked good.
It looked about enough done. I mean, obviously polish whenever you can. But yeah. What were your opening thoughts about it?
Again, I've never seen another Indiana Jones. I thought it looked really good, and then obviously they used Harrison Ford likeness because that was my big thing. I was like,
oh, you know who does his voice? I was
Troy Baker.
Yeah, I was like, God, dude, what can't this guy do?
I thought, and I was like, you know what? That's a really good impression. I feel like it sounds.
It
Close
does
to
sound like a nice,
Troy Baker.
yeah. Because I'm about to cut you off, but it does take place. I like that they gave it a timestamp. It takes place between Raiders and the Last Crusade, so this is like prime Indiana Jones
between the first and second movie, right?
Right.
Yeah, and again, I like that too. I was like, all right, that's kind of perfect timing. I like the idea of it being first and third because they were saying too, like, you want to get those iconic shots of like Indy where he's like standing there and you're seeing whatever in front of him, or when he's climbing something that makes it easier for traversal. But then when you're in first person, like you're doing when you're doing the fight and stuff like that, I was like, oh, you know, I really like that, and I want to say like there are tons of people out there hating on this that it's first. I've never seen so many people hate saying like, oh, this is a first person game, that's dog shit.
Oh, really? I've been seeing the opposite.
Dude,
I've been seeing a lot of people loving it.
Even Ryan McCaffrey at IGN put out like a tweet on it saying like the only reason people are hating on it is because it's an exclusive. It's shit because it's first person. If they made it for third person, it'd be shit because it just looks like Uncharted. I'm like, dude, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, there was nothing like I was on like a couple forums just seeing I always like to see other people's reactions besides my own. Some people are like, those facial animations, yikes. I'm like, dude, you don't know how off this is, but the facial look perfectly fine.
Fine to me.
Like, I thought it looked good, and while some of it maybe was like not like a little clippy, but maybe the mouth is just a little bit off. There's how much time
we have all year essentially. December 15th. That gives us all year.
I don't understand unless you just straight up don't like Indiana Jones. I don't understand how you could like hate this because I don't even know too much about Indiana Jones, and I'm hyped for this.
Yeah, one of the things they wanted to point out and make sure that it was understood is that even though it's a first-person game, it's not necessarily a first-person shooter. One of the main things they kind of wanted to make sure you were seeing is that there is going to be exploration. There's going to be side things that you can do. There's going to be puzzle solving. There's going to be a way. One of the things they were saying, like, yeah, you could grab the pistol and shoot somebody or knock out the guard. But what about climbing up this with your whip or something? It's like it explores it encourages the exploration. That's kind of one things I wanted to kind of point out. What do you think the percentage of action versus puzzles is going to be? Because if you are expecting a Tomb Raider, a Uncharted, I think they're making it clear that it's not going to be as action heavy as that. I mean, as close as much action as you can have. I think they are going to be exploring, at least what it looks like, more of the look around, kind of see what you can find to get past the guards. I mean, how did you take it?
And do these puzzles, yeah, because at one point, like, you have this, like, weird little, it almost looks like a chess piece where you put on the board, then you're trying to figure out whatever. I would like that for it to be, like, a lot more. I don't need something to be Wolfenstein 3 Indy versus the Nazis where you're just running and gunning the whole time. So as long as you have combat in there, plus, again, too, like, I like the idea that, like, you can shoot these people or get up here, memorize the guard's route, maybe take out one guard like quietly and then stealth your way through. And that's something I much prefer to do in like games anyways.
Yeah, and that was cool too, is that when you brought up the Nazis, is they show off the new villain they have is Emmerich Voss. And
I liked him.
Yeah, he was voiced, I'll pull it up here in a second, but like when he was talking to him and he's buried in the dirt, I mean, it seemed like he was really into it. It seemed like a really menacing villain, and some of the guys that were talking about it were saying he's probably one of the most funnest villains that they've had making a game. And these are guys coming from Wolfenstein and Quake, so that was kind of cool to hear.
I was going to say, now that hopefully, like, if they make a sequel, I think it would be really good to get people who've been like modern villains, like someone like Christoph Waltz, especially because he does speak German, or someone like Mads Mikkelsen too, because they both portrayed like great villains, and I think that they would fit perfectly within this era as being like some sort of. I mean, you've already seen Christoph Waltz as a Nazi, so like he would. I was like, man, that would be like perfect in there for maybe the next villain or something like that. But I liked this dude a lot. I was like, he looked great.
Yeah. I had his name pulled up. Marios Gavrilis as the voice anyway. And then as far as the other character that we got introduced to was a new protagonist that they said was Gina Lombardi, and she seems cool. She seems like it's always nice when Indy has a partner and you can kind of play off of, but as some of the things I've been seeing written is they said protagonist. They didn't say side character. So it's one of the questions going around is, okay, was she going to be a playable character? Are there going to be missions where it kind of splits up? And I'm like, ooh, I'd actually would really like seeing
Mary
that.
Jane stealth missions.
Well, because if you're gonna water it down, I don't mean that badly, but she's not gonna have the whip, is she? She's not gonna have the pistol, is she? So what's gonna be separating them two, or is it just gonna be stealth missions like that? And in a game like this, that might play better than in a Spider-Man game. But I'm curious if you think you're even gonna be able to play her at all.
I think so. I don't see why not too. And she could be that person that's more stealthy. Like, okay, I can fit through here where Indy can't because he's bigger.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing I just want to say is the combat. I think they did it on purpose. They were showing a lot of kind of quick cut combat scenes, like here be the whip, and then ooh, we're switching over to this. I think we do need to see a more fluid, like a level, like like 10 minutes of a level, just to see how you can actually pursue it. Because I didn't think it looked great, and I didn't think it looked bad. I thought the fighting looked okay. I thought the whip action looked good. It looked a little cool when he was using it as like more like rope to swing and things like that. But as far as the combat goes, I think it looked okay. Did you look at it any better or any worse?
I liked it, and I did want to see more, but I did like to see the different uses of the whip. And granted, some of these things look a little choppy. We don't have a release date, and I didn't get the impression that this game was going to come out at the start of the year. This looks very end of the year to me. So
yeah, 100%. I think that was everything I had at the end of this. Unless there's anything specifically you want to talk about with Indiana Jones.
No, I mean, I don't think that anyone could have looked at that and been like, this game looks like trash. Like, I'm reading some people's opinions out there, like, you're insane.
Yeah, so as far as I can tell, guys, this was a very good start. Again, my question goes back to the beginning. Are any of these good enough to be rivals to Sony's first party or Nintendo's first party? I think if any of them have the best chance, it's going to be Indiana Jones once we see more of it. But I think Avowed's probably on the top of most people's list for the next big Xbox game.
How did you feel about the event in general?
It was nice. For 40 minutes, I felt like we got a lot out of it. And surprisingly, because usually I hate filler, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool to see how they've been doing this. One of the coolest things at the end when they were kind of signing off Indiana Jones, did you see Todd Howard pop up in the background and still like the egg or whatever it was and dip back down? So that was obviously a reference from the movie. So that's all I got to say about it. Anything else?
Honestly, I really liked it too. I really would like to see another one of these, but maybe do your E3 style event, which is trailer, new coming stuff, even stuff that's maybe like a year or two away, whatever. But then your main games for this year, this would be the type of thing I would like to watch after, not in that E3 style press conference, because you could have easily showed the trailers for these games with the release dates and other important stuff, and then afterwards, hey, we have this 40-minute direct if you want to check it out for these games that we're really trying to focus on, and that would have fit like perfectly too. But then the other thing would have been for here's the big unannounced stuff, the Banjo-Kazooie 3, the whatever, something like that. Yeah,
because I'm getting tired of seeing things on Perfect Dark. I'm getting tired of seeing things on Fable. It's like, we know they're coming. Assuming they stick the dates, it's like, okay,
solid.
This is all this year. I'm tired of seeing games, when we saw Hellblade 2. Oh yeah, 4 years later, we're still talking about it, and it's finally coming out. So I know they've got to raise hype here and there for certain things, projects, but it's like, at least with this, I'm going, okay, these 4 things I can plan on coming out in this year, and I can put my calendar around it and play those games.
So that's what I was saying. It was like, if you did the big E3 thing where you have the stuff and maybe most of it's not coming out this year, you show this afterwards. This is what's rock solid this year for whatever. And I think that would assuage a lot of people who are like, oh, well, when are these other games coming? And they have nothing, blah, blah, blah going on. And they're like, no, here we have this rock solid list.
Yeah, so, and I think it was a pretty rock solid list. I mean, you could say how you want to say about it, but overall, I think it was a really solid start for Microsoft being in this beginning of 2024. So with that done out of the way, guys, we're going to take a question of the week. Now, guys, if you want to submit questions Andrew and I can answer on the show, you can do so a couple of different ways. You can email them to us at lastcallproductions@gmail.com. You can leave a comment at the bottom of a YouTube video, and we can take it there, or you can find me on social media at Craig Perales, and I can take it there. And this question comes from our good friend Melissa Segura, and she wrote, and apologies because I know you wrote it to us last year and we just forgot to add it in, so you're our first question of this year, so again, apologies. It says, I missed you guys. How often would you say that you would use a guide for gaming, and what determines when you use them? Scarlett is really big into watching walkthroughs right now when she gets stuck, and it is so interesting to see how she takes in what she is watching. So I want to say we've tackled something similar to this, and one of the biggest things I've always got to say is I have no problem if anybody wants to play a guide. We're living in a world where there's so many games coming out so fast. If you don't want to waste your time on something, then don't do it. I mean, it's on you if you want to play, explore, and go around. And generally speaking, I think Andrew and I land on kind of the same spot where I usually use a guide if I'm trying to do like collectibles. Like right now, so for example, I was playing Alan Wake. Dude, there was like 92 things that you had to find that were all part of these things. You had to find these caches, you had to find these TVs, you had to find all these what were they? Cups or something like that. I forget what they were. You had to shoot all these bottles, and you can completely pass them, and then you got to replay the whole chapter over again. So it's like I have no problem of going, let me just watch a quick video, and when I get to a certain point, I'll find it there. The other one that I'm playing, and I'll talk about it more next week, is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the remastered version. There's intel, and there's like 42 pieces of intel, and I'm playing it on veteran, and when I'm not doing the cheese, I'm actually playing every mission, and I'm almost done with the game. And it's like, I don't have time to waste looking for intel on veteran. I need to just tell me what room to go into. The only other thing I will say that I'll give it on the other side that I actually did a full walkthrough was when Andrew finally, I forget if you bought it for me or I played it on your account. When I played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, I used a full walkthrough because that's 100% guide. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't really not do it and then go back and go, okay, what part did I miss and how would I get it or what room? So for me, I had a lot of fun doing that game 100% because it's not that long of a game, and I had a blast doing that. So I would say there's room for both, but that's how generally I would look at it. Do you look at it any different?
No, it's kind of the same, especially if I'm playing like a collectibles or something like that. I don't have time to be sitting here looking every little thing for it or whatever.
Somebody else has done that for me.
I'll just look up a collectible guide, but it depends on the game. Like when I did Resident Evil 4, I will do my first, especially if it's a game that I'm extremely excited for, or like Dead Space Remake or something, I'll do the first playthrough completely blind. Like I won't look anything up.
That's a good point too, because I never go back and play games twice, and I know you love doing that shit.
Yeah, so if it's a game I know I'm 100% like those, I will go through and play it blind. The only thing I ever look up on a game, especially if it's like a really, like let's say I was doing like Final Fantasy 15 or something like that. Is there anything that's missable just because I accidentally said no or yes or something like that? I would look something like that up ahead of time. But other than that, most of the time I'll just play it through. Or like, I don't know that I've ever used one like front to back, but I'll have it pulled up. Like when I did Controller Near, like sometimes it wasn't very clear about where I needed to go, what I needed to do. Or sometimes the mission wasn't popping up, and it's because I didn't walk a certain direction because I was off investigating other stuff. So I'd gotten around, but the wrong way. So I'm like, well, what the hell? What am I supposed to do? So I got to look it up and go back. But I don't think I've ever sat there and like done it point A to B, B to C, then C to D to do that. The only time I ever do like in-depth walkthroughs is if I'm doing like an achievement guide for something.
Yeah,
but I don't mind if you want to use those. Like personally, games are meant to like be enjoyed, and if that helps you out, especially too, there's nothing fun about like when I'm playing Control or something. There's nothing fun about being stuck on a puzzle for like 3 hours and then trying to solve it, and maybe it's just you had something around the wrong way, and I'm like, dude, that pisses me off even more.
Or you don't know that it's glitched and something's missing, and you're like, what is going on? Because I've had that too, where you're playing and you're like, dude, what is missing here? And you're like, okay, restart, and you're going like, oh, that party wasn't even moving. So at least with the heads up, you can be like, oh, okay, something here is wrong. But
I just did something like that. I think it was in like Control towards the end. Like I went to a room, but this person wasn't talking to me, and I couldn't talk to them. And there's no way to trigger it. Then when I looked it up, they're like, oh, if this happens, just go to this part of the game and you'll just trigger the next section. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like I never would have known that, and I'm not going to sit there for 5 hours trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's so funny because I just had it happen. I think it's just Remedy games, man, because I had some audio. I forgot to mention earlier, I had audio drop on 2 different spots, but I was going to this part where this radio host guy is, and you're supposed to talk to him to trigger the next scene, and he keeps talking to this lady on the line. I'm like, what am I waiting for? Like, because I'm trying to like bust on these doors. I'm like, how long? Because I'm like, and then I started realizing that they go in a sentence and they're saying the same thing at the end. I'm like, okay, this has to be off. So I just looked it up to make sure, and it's like, no, that's supposed to be the spot that triggers it. And I'm like, okay, good, done, restart, and went through. So yeah, so it can be very helpful, and then especially when you're in something that's very frustrating. So I hope that answers your question as best as we could. So guys, that is the end of episode 184. Join us next week, guys, for episode 185. My name is Craig Perales. That is Mandrew Montman. Until next time, guys. Cheers.
See ya.